Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Papa Bear Podcast, the Papa Bear Podcast, if you're telling your friends about it. I am joined here today by someone who I'm not going to introduce yet because she will be able to talk as soon as I introduce her. Rules of the podcast. I am joined in my studio audience by my beautiful wife, beautiful baby, and our amazingly tall and handsome producer, Connor. Carson is away at school right now.
What a loser.
I know. Nerd. What a nerd. We miss him. We love him. Were you saying no?
I said, yeah.
Oh.
I miss him.
He's crying a little bit. Carson, if you're watching, he's crying. We miss you. So, a couple of little updates. We didn't have an update. We didn't have an episode for you last week. There's a reason for this. We are working on meeting, and we have met, to talk about how this new year is going to go. 2020, and our vision is perfect. That was it. That was like all I got. 2020 vision is perfect. Do you have 2020?
I do.
You do? I know you don't.
What?
I thought you wore contacts.
No.
No?
I don't have contacts.
Okay, well, 2020 vision is 3/4 perfect. Well, I mean, there is a baby in the room. We have no idea. Yeah, so we didn't have an episode for you guys last week. We apologize. We still love you. But we needed to get some things worked out. We needed to talk through some things. And so we've got that, and we are super excited moving forward. So we have got here at the Papa Bear Podcast content scheduled all the way, I want to say through the end of February right now. So that's super exciting. I'm excited. We are now on SoundCloud. Everybody, round of applause.
Whoa.
You shush.
I said whoa.
No, shh. You keep saying words. It's more. Oh my goodness. Breaking the rules. And so SoundCloud is like step one, right? SoundCloud, I became a SoundCloud rapper last week, or 2 weeks ago, because we didn't have an episode last week. 2 weeks ago, I became a SoundCloud rapper, for those of you who didn't know. So now I'm going to be famous. I'm going to blow up. I'm going to leave this little town. I know, actually, I'm not going anywhere. I've got way more stuff. It was better. But that's the first step. Now we're working on getting on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the good stuff, which is exceedingly more difficult than you would think it is. Like, it is ridiculous. You can't just say, hey, I'm an artist, here's my music, put up a page. It doesn't work like that. You have to have content on a separate site and then submit to these different services, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and say, hey, I want to be a podcast, stream through you guys, and then they will evaluate if you're good enough to be on their stuff. That's crazy. I mean, it's great. But I will say that I've seen some pretty garbage stuff on Spotify before, so I don't know why I should have to. I mean, maybe we're garbage. Are we garbage? No, says my producer. Well, I guess we're at that part of the show where I need to introduce who's sitting across from me. If you're listening on SoundCloud, you have no idea except that somebody was giggling and laughing earlier, which will happen an innumerable amount of times throughout this show. I just want to let you know she has a giggle effect when she is breathing. So that's not giggling. That's my baby crying. She is not having it today. So I am joined, if you're watching on YouTube and you already know, if you are friends with her, you are blessed. If you know her, you are blessed. The fantastic Miss Lauren Hill.
Wow, thanks. What a great introduction.
Woohoo. Thank you so much. I worked on that for all of while I was talking.
Impressive.
So, very briefly, we'll talk about this just for a second before we dive into the meat and the potatoes. Do you like meat and potatoes?
I do.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
So who are you?
you know?
That seems so awkward to ask. Like,
That's such a weird question.
like I invited you on the podcast. We're gonna talk. We know what we're talking about.
Podcast.
The podcast. I became a Yankee for a minute. My wife's a Yankee. It's fantastic. All right, so the podcast. Who are you?
Well, my name is Lauren. So for all you guys that know, it's a great start. I work for Grace Bible Church as their preschool lead. So I work with tinies all the time. It's great.
So awesome.
I'm also a barista, so I know how to make all your little lattes and all that fun stuff.
Where are you a barista at? Give them a shout out.
Oh.
We'll see if they sponsor us.
Shout out to coffee culture.
Shout out to all the shout outs. Listen, I feel ashamed a little bit because I have had a
Blueberry
espresso.
spritzer.
I've had an espresso. I have not had any other coffee from Coffee Culture except for espresso, which was fantastic. I stayed awake for like 3 days. And but if you get nothing else, I want to say this is like the second time I've given them a shout out. You need to talk to Emmy. Like, we can get something popping on this. Like, let's go. I'll make her a shirt. Tell her that.
I'll do my best.
Somebody will make her a shirt. If I make her a shirt, it's going to look terrible.
So, yeah, do you know how to use a Cricut?
But listen, if you get nothing else, if you're not a coffee person, you're like, oh, well, thanks for repping Coffee Culture. I don't want anything from there. Get the blueberry spritzer. It is amazing. It is a godsend. It is something where I have never experienced. What is in a blueberry spritzer? Are you allowed to tell us? The hard questions.
I know. It's just bubbly lemonade and blueberries. Wow. Carbonated lemonade.
And blueberries.
I
Some
know.
with them berries. I'm telling you right now. I'm going to tell you right now.
I mean, bears do like berries.
Both. I don't know. Maybe she like gets a bear claw to swirl around. Like an actual bear claw, not a pastry. Okay, so that's who you are. That's what you currently do. We're here today to talk about what you will be doing, which is what?
So my goal is to go and be a missionary full time, wherever the Lord wants me to be.
Oh, this is going to be such a good interview. I'm so excited. I am so ready for this. Guys, y'all ain't ready. If you didn't prepare, I've had some time to prepare for this one. Mentally, emotionally, I might cry a little bit. Lauren is like a very, very, very good friend of ours. And she's become like our little pup, our daughter.
A pup.
A pup. Our daughter of sorts.
You could have said godmother.
Yeah, she is our daughter's godmother as well. And so she is just like very close to us. We'll get there. So we know who you are, what you do, what you will be doing. Now it's time for Dad Joke Segment. Can we get like a fly-in? I think we should like, I don't know, like a fly-in. Yeah, something to fly, like that says Dad Joke. I don't know. Thinking out loud.
Let me tell
Okay.
you about your dads.
Dad Joke Segment. Okay.
Dad joke session.
Okay, are you ready?
I feel like this should be like the Bill Nye, the Science Guy theme song, but it'd be like dad, 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 dad.
Can we license that? We don't make money yet, so.
Papa Bear, the podcast guy. Dad, 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 dad.
Okay. I love that. All of it. Okay, so are you ready?
I don't think I'm ready for this, jelly.
I'm going to stare at you.
Am I not supposed to laugh?
If you can't.
I'm already laughing.
Okay, compose yourself. I feel like, no, this still sounds good. Okay. Oh, the lag's gone. What happens? This thing is cursed. Okay. All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm trying to hold my breath so I don't laugh.
When you're breathing, she's laughing. Here we go. So, I went to the library today.
Wow.
That's not funny. I went to the library today. I was looking for something, so I decided to go up to the librarian. I went up to the librarian and I said, "Hey, excuse me. Do you have any books about paranoia?" They're right behind you.
I feel like I can make it through this one.
You got this.
I almost laughed because I was trying to picture you like in a wheelchair rolling through a library.
That's the funny part. Like the dad joke is just, I went to a library today.
I mean, it would be kind of comical to watch you just
Going through a library?
yeah, in your wheelchair and like trying to make it to the top shelf, but you can't because you're in a wheelchair.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
That like, and I feel like you would be looking for like, wait, we just need to cut that part out.
That was dad joke segment. We'll edit that in. Okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you. You survived dad joke.
No. I expect a better one next time.
I'll get you a better one next time. That's
Thanks.
pretty great. We just missed it. All right, so the main stage. This is our main talking point. And as we said earlier, we're going to be talking about missions. We're going to be talking specifically about you going into missions. So I want to be very can't think of the right word. I want to be very plain, very elaborate as well about how we can converse about this. Okay?
Okay.
So, without missing anything and also giving this the due justice that it deserves, let's talk.
Okay.
History. Have you always wanted to be... I know the answer to these questions, but they don't. But I'm also excited that if something happens, like you say something I didn't know, I'm going to be like, oh, wow. Okay, so
Okay.
what has led you? Have you always wanted to be a missionary?
I mean, I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, when I was in church, like when I was a kid, I remember like we had a thing called Girls in Action and we learned about missionaries and things like that. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And so I enjoyed that as a kid, like getting to learn about missionaries. And when I was in college, like I enjoyed writing about like martyrs and things like that. But like when I started my walk with the Lord, like in high school, like I used to have just dreams of going into like closed war zone areas and like places like Somalia and other places. And I remember calling one of my friends and being like, hey, you're never going to guess what happened. Like I had a dream about this place and I thought it was a made up place that I made up in my dream. And when I Googled it, it was a legit place. And so I was just like, all right. I was like, this is interesting. So at that point, I kind of thought about missions and I kind of had like semi-known that like I wanted to do it. But throughout college and everything, like I kind of lost sight of missions and everything. I got caught up in trying to like either go into nursing or become a psychologist and things like that.
More of a stable career kind of thing. Okay.
Because that was something more that like my parents were weighing on my heart. And so I had a lot of inner battle going on of like, okay, God, what are you wanting me to do? And this is what my parents are wanting me to do. So after my senior year, I prayed for the Lord just to get me out of North Carolina. And when I moved down to Florida, there was a guy named Casey. And he was like, hey, like, let's go on a mission trip to Ragged Island, Bahamas. And I was just like, sure, let's go. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I have free time that weekend. Let's go. So I went. And it was around Christmas time, so a lot of people weren't on the island still, but we got to meet with like some of the kids that were there and some of the families. And a lot of it was just doing life with the people there, and I enjoyed getting to see the different cultures.
Okay.
And then in 2018, 2018.
Wow.
Whoa. There was a guy named Brad who like had gone to different churches looking for people.
Was that 18?
Yeah.
Seems like it's been so much longer than that.
I know, right?
No way. Okay.
Yeah, 2018.
Wow.
Whoa.
Whoa.
But So this man named Brad had come to the church, and he had asked all the guys on staff if they wanted to go on a trip to Africa. And everyone that was part of our staff that were males all had something going on to where they were like, okay, we can't go. And Casey, I looked at him and I said, I want to go.
Yeah.
I don't know why I really wanted to go. I just I felt it in me like I'm supposed to go on this trip, so I need to go. And I looked at Casey and I said, whatever it takes, I need to go on this trip. And so I had a month to raise funds and everything for it. Packed my bags, went to Uganda and Rwanda. As soon as we landed in Africa, I felt like I was at home. And it was a feeling I can't explain. Like whenever you go somewhere and you feel like you're right where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so there, we got to just pour into people and do life with people. And we had also brought gifts and things like that for the people there. But I felt like there was something much more that I wanted to be able to give the people, not necessarily gifts, but I wanted to be able to invest in them and pour in them more. And so our church at Grace Bible actually funds some missionaries that are through Overland Missions, and their names are Jake and Jesse. Love them. And so they had talked about Overland over the past couple of years. And so when I talked to Jessie for a women to women event, she was like, think about it. So I had considered it a little bit, and then our pastor, he went to Zambia, Africa to go visit them, and then he came back after a trip, and he looked at me and he was like, yo, what up, Africa? And I looked around the room and I'm like, okay, who are you talking to? I was like, I'm sorry, I'm so white, I'm pale. Let's go ahead and put this in the books. I am albino compared to most people.
She is.
And so I was just like, all right, I was like, you're not talking to me. And he goes, no, I'm talking to you. He was like, you're going back to Africa. And what he hadn't known was I had been praying since the first time that I went for being able to go back. And so when he said I was going, I was like, all right, let's do this.
That's confirmation right there, baby.
And so raised funds again. And I got on my flights and everything for this trip. And when we landed in Africa, I felt that same sense of being home.
Yeah.
I cried more leaving Africa than I cried going to Africa. And being able to do life with those people and pour into them was one of those things where I was like, all right, God, you have confirmed this, as well as there were areas on the trip that I struggled being able to be vulnerable and open up. And I talked with one of the missionaries who was there, and he was like, I went through all of this too before I became a missionary. And I remember crying because I was just like, Lord, these were things that I tried to count myself out for, and you've put somebody there that is telling me they went through the exact same thing, and is being able to confirm those things of you. You're calling me to this.
That's good. And just a little point of detail that I think is absolutely amazing. Just blows my socks off every time I think about it. Your first trip in 2018.
I know.
That does not seem. Oh my goodness. But your first trip, you pointed out you had 1 month to raise the funds. Now I want to say this, and I want you to say this number, because I did not believe in this number at first either. This is a crazy number, right?
Yeah.
How much money in 1 month did you have to raise to go? Shots and everything included.
Oh man, it was about $5,000 total.
$5,000. Listen, whatever your position on God, everything is. We are a family-friendly show, and we are very foundational in our beliefs here, and I just want to point out that this is a very real thing, that God will call you and he will confirm you. And to raise $5,000, and by the way, she did not have just $5,000 sitting around. I promise, she works in ministry. She might have $5 sitting around. That's it.
Oh yeah, I was broke as a joke. Like
You were. I mean, you weren't preschool lead at the time.
no.
You were
I
working one job at the time.
one job, and I had like a couple hours a week, and so yeah, and most of my money was going toward like bills and rent and things like that.
All of that, like this is not okay. God's called me, so it means that He's like cut out all my bills and He's cut out like all the living expenses. No, this is God has called me and He has allowed me and He has cleared this path because He called me and it is definite. And my next question was, how do you discern a calling? And I think this is kind of like stepping through that. I mean, listen, I can feel till I'm blue in the face that I need to be like a worship drummer for Passion and tour with them and my wife be the nurse and like all of that fun stuff. But until God is showing me and walking through these doors and guiding me and working me through where I need to be, then as far as I'm concerned, it is just all talk. But for God to lay a calling on your heart and then say, oh, and by the way, you're working it out, here's the $5,000 in 1 month. Less than 1 month, really.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have no 1 month. It was 1 month till the trip.
Yeah, it was I had to have the money by a certain date in order to go on the trip.
Mm-hmm.
So, craziness.
So listen, this is gonna be good, y'all. Y'all don't know I'm so stoked for this interview, and we're still in it. We're like,
Yeah.
we didn't even start it. I'm ready.
Oh, man.
I got my Dustin Woods on right now.
I like it.
I like this.
So for discerning a call, though, like I think a lot of it was taking it to His Word and like and the things that like the Lord was laying on my heart. Like I had to make sure that it was something that I could compare to His Word and look at and say, Lord, is this something like that you're calling me to? Is this something that like is biblical and true? And so I did that, and like even before I had moved to Florida, like the Lord had laid on my heart like about how like I need to be okay with leaving my parents and going. And so I like packed up my bags and left as like the only person in my family member to move down to a place where I knew one person.
Right?
And so, and I think that was just the Lord preparing me for the seasons to come of going places to where He would have me in a place where I would only know like one or two people.
Yeah. Well, listen, that is that's a missionary's call.
Yeah.
Like that is such, and I mean like for Him to like that is the kind and caring nature of our God. I fully believe, because it's, it could be like, oh, well, you're going to be in Africa, so just go ahead and head to China, Africa, wherever.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, take this baby step, head to Florida, and I got stuff for you to do. And this was not like, I love these seasons of preparedness. Seasons of preparation are sometimes some of my favorite, because they are so much for you to press into God, because you don't know. Like, and there are moments where we can stop and we can freak out and we can say, I'm not being used by God, so God's not here, I must be in the wrong. But when we really truly listen for those moments and we hear, those are the moments that God's using us for preparation in this.
Yeah. And I think the crazier part is, so before I even moved down to Florida, my favorite verse had been like Isaiah 6:8, where it says, and the Lord asked, whom shall I send? And like he replied, Lord, send me. And so I had constantly reminded me, like myself, about that, about how like, all right, Lord, like wherever you want me to go, like I'll go. And that had became like the verse that I was going to stick with. And that's the one that like I constantly like remind myself of daily. But I think even going further than going to the Word, like I had to spend a lot of time in prayer. Like I think the hardest thing of deciding whether or not to be a missionary is also like you could be in a really great place. Like I love my job. I love what I do. Like I go home and like I get to tell stories about like the kids that I get to basically raise and like teach about the Lord, and I enjoy every day. Like I wake up loving it. But I also like going and doing mission trips, like is something that like there was a different level of joy that I experienced going on missions. And so with that, like, it was a hard decision to weigh through of, like, Lord, like, are you calling me to going to Africa and to other countries and places, or are you calling me to stay here? And so I had to allow myself to have time just to pray about it and seek the Lord on that, being like, God, like, if this is what you're calling me to, like, I'll do it, I'll go, but I just need to know, like, where you're calling me to go and, like, what you're wanting me to do.
Yeah.
And the Lord is so good about laying things heavy on your heart for you to know, like, where he wants you to be.
Man,
And I knew that if I were to stay here instead of going to Africa, then, like, I wouldn't be doing what he's asking me to do in this season. Because I asked the Lord to make me uncomfortable. And so, I mean, with that, like, led to me having to go to people that are in higher command of me. So, like, our pastors, and my boss that's over me for children's ministry, and talking to them about, like, what's going on and, like, what the decision is that's laying on my heart. And, like, every single one of them was just like, well, you knew this was coming. And my boss had actually talked to the pastors and said to them, like, after my first trip, that there was actually going to be a day where I was going to end up leaving and going full time. And I was like, why didn't anyone tell me about these conversations?
Because they knew it was going to happen one day anyway. I mean, they're just waiting for it.
But so there was also that level of confirmation that, like, the Lord had given me to be able to show me that, like, okay, like, not only am I calling you to this, but, like, other people are seeing this in you too.
Yeah.
And I think that was the, like, most heart-wrenching, like, part where, like, not heart-wrenching, but most, like,
encouraging.
Yeah, exuberating, encouraging feeling that you could experience.
That's a word.
Yeah, I know. Where, like, every time somebody told me, like, this is where they saw me going and, like, where they knew the Lord was calling me to, like, it brought me to tears, because I'm like, okay, like, this is something I need to do.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So that's very important. Confirmation, especially in something like this. I mean, and you talked about how things can be going so well, like your life can be happy and dandy, and God is still calling you to somewhere else, right? And so this instantly makes me think, for those of you who don't know, I'm actually a missionary's kid. My parents were both missionaries. We were out in New Mexico for 8 to 10 years. We were out with the local tribes out in that area. It was a lot of amazing things. I've seen some things that I will never forget in my whole life. If you don't believe spiritual warfare is real, just go out west. It's closest. But so talking about where everything can be fine and dandy, but God can still be calling you to something completely different, and your calling is not fulfilled when things are, like, absolutely perfect necessarily. I instantly think of William Borden, who, listen, this is, like, one of my favorite missionaries. But actually, Paul's my favorite missionary, if I'm being honest. So, but William Borden, if you've heard of Borden's Dairy, he was the heir to Borden's Dairy. Dude had, like, millions of dollars, right? And he was set to inherit all of this, inherit the business. Like, he would get all of this money, all of this empire, like, and he throws it all away because he feels called to be a missionary in China, right? And so and this is, like, way back in the day, this isn't, like, current, so travel is much sketchier, you know? And so he starts making his trek, and for the area that he was going, he had to travel through Egypt, right? And so he's traveling through Egypt, and he comes down with this disease, and I can't remember right off the top of my head. It was something along the lines of, like, yellow fever or something like that. And on his deathbed, he didn't end up making it to China. And all of these people had told him, you're wasting your life, you're wasting your fortune, this isn't worth it. This obviously isn't what God's called for you, you know, like, all these influences, right? And in his journal, his last entry was no reserve, no retreat, no regrets. And if I can just say that is the call or the mantra of every missionary. No reserve, no retreat, no regrets. because you know that calling is on your heart. And there's nothing else that you could do. Right? Fire up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you also mentioned Overland, so I want to talk about them really quick. Who is Overland Missions?
Yeah. So Overland Missions is a missionary nonprofit organization who was actually started by Philip and Sharon Smithhurst. They started in about 1999, and they have hit the ground running of going into countries, whether they're open or closed. Like, their goal is to be able to go in and preach the gospel and to be able to reach the people that are unreachable, because they don't see them as closed areas. They see them as areas that have already been infiltrated by the Lord, and that the Lord's already gone before them to open those doors, and so those areas are going to be open. But with that being said, like, they have about 198 full-time staff members, and they're working in 15 countries on 5 different continents, and their goal is to continue moving throughout the areas.
Woo. So that's, some small organization that you want to be a part of. Yeah, okay, whatever. Sounds like a mom and pop shop to me. That's so exciting.
It is.
Yeah, so Overland, and we've heard from a lot, like Jake and Jesse. Schwartzfigger. I know it, and I didn't want to tempt it. But we've talked to them a bit. They've come to GBC, and they've talked a lot. They're always amazing. Jake and Jesse are currently in Africa as well.
Yep, they're in Zambia.
And they're just doing small things like leading revivals of entire countries and chieftains and entire tribes. And I don't mean like little huts on the side of like we're talking about cities and communities and entire cultures that they're leading a revival over there currently.
Yeah, I don't even think you can call it small, though. I mean, Jake and
Jesse, that was in such a sarcastic manner.
They're in such a place to where, like, so they have different chiefs, like Chief Chapepo and others, that they are now meeting with chiefs and leaders that are over different areas and pouring into them.
And chiefs and chiefdoms where God was not in the idealism of these tribes.
No, and that's a lot of it. Like Philip and Sharon have told stories about areas that they've gone into, and they talk about the spiritual warfare that they've gone through and they've experienced when they go into chiefdoms. And they've told the chiefs about like how like there's different authorities other than them in the area, and how like those chiefs may think they're in authority, but they're not, because they're allowing another authority to rule. And so talk about a humbling experience if you're a chief to be told like, oh, you thought you're a chief, but you're not.
And what an opportunity to possibly lose your head in a moment where you're going to tell a chief, yeah, you thought.
Yeah. Well, their mantra, like the words that they go by, is whatever it takes. And so it doesn't matter what's going on. Like they have plenty of things that they go by, but like one of their main rules is they don't travel alone.
Yeah.
You're always with somebody else. You have a buddy system, as well as like making sure that you're doing whatever it takes to reach the people in a manner that like you allow the Lord to work through you and to be able to pour into the people that you're experiencing and doing life with.
Yeah. Yeah, I said small in such an ironic sentiment. I mean, like they will come and share stories with what's going on, and if you don't believe in spiritual warfare, I mean, it is just so real there. Witchcraft, witch doctors are still a very real thing there, and I can't properly describe this because it is just so heavy. So next time they're here, come to GBC and
I mean, you truly get to experience it when you go there. Like, I think the first experience I had with it was having a little kid come up to me. And for them, like, they had their skin that had been engraved with symbols and things like that. But one of the kids had a line that went straight down his chest that looked as though it would be one that would be as if they had a heart transplant or things like that.
Yeah.
And so, but you're in an area where you know that that's not something that occurred.
Yeah.
And so then you look at the child's full body and you see different markings and symbols that are on them because their families thought, like, if the child was sick or something was going on, they were told, like, that was the way to heal their kid. And in actuality, like, you have different, like, curses and things like that are thrown on these kids. And, like, the spiritual warfare is so completely different there than it is here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's still present in the States just as it is there.
Yeah.
But being able to see that firsthand with that experience, like you sit there and you're humbled by it, because the more you look at other people, the more that you see the symbols and the engraved lines and things like that on people, and you're like, wow, like witchcraft and witch doctors and things like that are such a real thing in other countries.
Yeah. So, not to make light of what we were just talking about, the background noise is my daughter, your goddaughter.
Yep.
And she's currently playing with the fun table that makes a lot of sounds. So, but I also want to just say this is what the Papa Bear podcast is. We're sitting in my dining room with my family around me, and this is what, like, listen to it with your family around you. That's fantastic. That's all I wanted to say. Side note. Sidebar. So, yes. I love it. Spiritual warfare is like a completely different beast. And we could spend so much time talking about it. But we can't.
No.
Because I actually have to go back and work. So, yeah. Why don't you bring her in? Like, I don't know that the world has gotten to see the squealing baby. That's a squealing baby, guys. Isn't she so cute? Here, wait.
Oh,
Yeah. There's a squealing baby. And there's a squealing baby. And there's a squealing baby. Okay. Thank you for that. That was a commercial break.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we've talked about Overland. We've talked about how you feel called to this. How do we discern a calling? So the first steps. There is a training program which is called what?
AMT.
AMT. It is not ATM.
No.
Because
don't
there
get
is
them-
no automatic money about this.
No.
We're going to be talking about money tonight, too.
So
by the way.
AMT is their advanced missionary training.
Okay.
So
Advanced AMT.
Advanced missionary training. Boom.
Got a little wobbly there for a second. Baby got a hold of the camera. That baby got that camera.
So
Okay, AMT.
yes.
Sorry, go.
So AMT is their advanced missionary training program where, like, for 3 months you are put in. They have one that's in Mozambique, and they have one that's in Zambia, and they have 3 different times during the summer that you can go. So they have a March group, a May group, and then an August group. And so for 3 months, you take 17 different courses while you're over there, ranging from first aid, where you have to be able to know signs and symptoms. But yeah, you have anything from first aid, where you're learning how to address wounds and things like that, to you have to learn vehicle maintenance, because you don't have...
It might break down.
Yeah, you don't have a mechanic that you can just go to and fix your car. Like, sometimes your vehicle, if you have one, it's going to get stuck in the mud. You need to know how to get your own vehicle out. You need to be able to, if something's going on with your engine, you need to be able to check it yourself. As well as, like, with the courses, like, there's one for public speaking, because you're going to be in environments where you're going to be talking and preaching to people in other countries about what the Lord's laid on your heart, and you're going to be speaking, whether it's going hut to hut and sitting with people and doing life with people, or being in front of
You wanted to input.
exactly, but like, or being in front of people and being able just to tell them about the Lord. Like, we have a class on that. And then all sorts of mixtures of classes that go on, and like, you're also, like, you're doing this beside 20 to 30 other people that have the same call of being a missionary. So you're not doing this by yourself. You're doing this with other people that are saying, like, okay, Lord, like, you're calling me to be a missionary. Like, I'm going to go. And so you go through these classes where you're learning all about, like, how to be a missionary, how to survive, like, basic survival skills, while also, like, they have times where they'll take you out into the bush throughout those 3 months. So the first time they take you out into the bush, you have a leader that's going to show you how to do, like, life with the people, and is going to show you how to go do hut to hut. It's going to show you how to, like, do certain things with the people that you're in the village with, and, like, and they're out in the middle of nowhere. Most of the time these are unreached people, and, like, when you go out there, like, you're preparing the way for another missionary. So it's not like we go in and there's nobody behind us. Like there's always a missionary that is going to be going right back into that area after us.
Yeah.
And so, but from there, like then the next time you go out, you still have a leader with you, but that that leader is hands off and they're just watching you and your team work throughout the area. And then the final time that you go out into the bush, your team goes by itself. And while the team is by itself, you have certain people that are designated as leaders, and you go out and you're like, okay, we are on our own for this, and we've been trained for this, so now we're gonna do our best of surviving, as well as preaching God's word to the best of our ability and what the Lord's laid on our heart, and trusting that the Holy Spirit's going to be working through us.
That's a heavy. Like, I mean, 3 months, and you're going to get to learn. How much about car maintenance do you know right now?
Well, you could answer this question yourself.
Never mind. Okay. Okay, so 3 months, and you're going to be getting hit heavy with everything.
Yes.
Everything that you need to know to survive, which you already, like first aid, you're fairly well adapted. You were in nursing school.
Yeah.
Public speaking, you're way bueno. So you just need to know how to strip a transmission.
I feel like there's so much more I still need to learn. So.
Well, yeah, probably. I mean, sure. I mean, sure. But yeah, so that's a lot in 3 months. But I mean, you got us.
Yeah.
So that's step number 1, right? Sorry.
That's not
step number 1. What is before AMT? Because AMT is not like you didn't get the acceptance letter to college, right?
So AMT is actually you go through an interviewing process. And so you actually have different people that write recommendations for you, just as they would for college. But these are people stating that they see this calling on your life.
Yeah.
And so there's phone interviews and things like that I had to go through and experience for it. And my very first interview over the phone, the lady that was interviewing me was just like, "Oh, I see that your first trip was to Ragged Island, Bahamas." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "We've been there." And I was like, "What?" Most people don't know about Ragged Island. And she was telling us about how for the hurricane that hit in 2017 that hit Sebring, Florida pretty hard. She was telling us about how they went to Ragged Island to help rebuild some of the houses. And so she had sent me pictures of Ragged Island being completely destroyed. And I was like, I know exactly which building this one is and that one is. And so it was really cool to be able to sit and talk to somebody that's been places that I've been. And so from there I was like, all right, this is going to be great.
Yeah. This is paving the way again.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the first part before all this was saying yes.
Yeah.
And being at a place to where I could understand that faithfulness isn't holding down the fort until Jesus returns. That faithfulness is taking back enemy territory by shining light in dark places, and fully standing on that and believing that and trusting that and being like, all right, God, here I am, send me, I'll go where you want me to go, and answering that call. And allowing my heart to be able to answer that call as well. And so once that occurred, then going through the interview process, saying yes to that and being told, okay, you're accepted. But then now it's the fundraising part, because you have to do your fundraising before you can get there.
All right, so we're going to talk about that in just a second. Y'all bust out your checkbooks. I'm very blunt about raising money.
That's okay.
Say what you said about faithfulness. Faithfulness is not what?
It's not waiting for the return of Jesus.
It is. Did you have it on a picture?
Yeah.
That's fine. You can pull it up. Listen, you think I remembered that quote?
No.
From William Borden? I had to look that up today.
Faithfulness isn't holding down the fort until Jesus returns. Faithfulness is taking back enemy territory by shining light in darkness.
One more time.
Faithfulness isn't holding down the fort until Jesus returns. Faithfulness is taking back enemy territory by shining light in dark places.
Just the concept that you are going to be in a war zone. I mean, not I mean, you could be called to be in a literal war zone, but also just the spiritual war zone that you are taking back enemy territory. To me, if you are a Christian, if you have that foundation and you don't get amped about that, like, shame on you. I'm sorry, like, sorry, not sorry, but like, shame on you if you don't get amped about the idea of we are in a war and there are people and we are all called to take back enemy territory. Every day when you make the difference, you are making a little notion of taking back that enemy territory. And Lauren is sitting here across the table from me, and she's going to be called, and she is called. I shouldn't say going to be. You are. Obviously, if you're waiting and you're just going through this already, that's fine. Yeah, God hasn't called you yet. No. You've been called to step into a foreign land to take the war there. To start taking back that territory. That just amps me up, man. Like, man, if that doesn't get you guys, like, shame on you. That is just disappointing, but amps me up. All right, so I wanted to kind of get a quick, but I think we've kind of talked about, like, a little bit, just a quick overview of a life of a missionary. You know, like, it's very rough. You don't know. She is not trading her very nice, and I want to say this is a very nice house that she is renting right now. It is bueno, okay? She's not trading this very nice house and her amazing, amazing friends. There's one behind the camera too, but...
Okay.
And you're behind the camera too. There's two behind the camera. Sorry. There's two behind the camera and there's a goddaughter. 3? Are you holding 3? Oh, 2. For a life of, like, caviar and... I don't know. Never had caviar. I feel like it's nasty.
It's not bad.
It's not? You've had caviar?
Yeah.
So she's not trading caviar for... I didn't know she was bougie.
No.
This bougie. Wow.
No. I went to a wedding.
Oh.
And I didn't know what it was. It was on a cracker. And so I grabbed the cracker.
She ate like $100 snack food. Huh?
Yeah, I was like...
Fancy.
And then I ate it. And I was like, oh, this is not jelly.
Is it salty? I've heard it's salty.
Yeah, it's very
so
salty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but she's not trading all of that for, like, life of, you know, luxury and a steady paying job. This is, like, just a brief overview. Just give us, like, what the average life looks like.
So it varies for each missionary going out there, but some missionaries do have houses and things like that, like once they've raised enough funds to be able to afford housing, but they don't stay in the houses their full time being out there. A lot of them have tents so that their house will be in a main village area, and then they'll have tents that they can pack up everything and they can go out into the bush and they can stay with the people that are out in areas that haven't been reached.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my time during AMT will be sleeping in a tent, and I'll have a tent mate that I've never met before. And guys, those are sounds of Africa, just so you know.
Listen, we're prep. We invite the environment,
exactly.
the atmosphere. We tried to get a lion.
Yeah.
The green screen. We could have had it.
So,
live from
Africa. Yeah.
Okay, no, it's not. That was both. We
So
don't have
with,
an elephant.
Yeah, with that, it would be sleeping in a tent, and it's not bad. Like, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And then you don't have your hot showers that you get to take. A lot of it is like learning how to do bush baths. And so a bush bath is where you heat water over a fire, and then you put some cold water that you have on the camp into the hot water, and you go into like a little area that's closed off with like grass that they make for a little shower area, and you literally are like dipping a cup in a basin and like pouring it on yourself and trying to scrub down the best that you can.
Connor, is that how you shower?
Talk about
So
That's for the paying members.
but yeah, you get that experience with it. And like, again, those missionaries that do have housing when they're outside of the bush, like they do have showers, but it's not hot water.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's freezing cold, and like you don't have electricity all the time or Wi-Fi. Like
it's very polarizing.
Yes.
Very different.
Yeah. Which is great. Like, you get to experience completely different things, whether, like, watching the environment and seeing like the sunrises and sunsets and things like that. But while you're over there, you also have to learn to like test the water and make sure that it's drinkable. And if it's not, like you have to be able to heat it over a fire and make sure that like you kill the bacteria that's in it. And you have a lot of different procedures. Like when it comes to eating certain foods, like there's certain foods that you have to make sure are okay for you to eat so that you don't get sick. And you have to know different different signs and symptoms for diseases like yellow fever and malaria and things like that, because those are very real things that you can experience while you're over there.
Things that we wouldn't even think about.
Yeah. Like going out camping and hiking, we don't think about the possibility of malaria, but over there, like you have to consider it. So you have to make sure that your body is covered at night and like making sure that like you've sprayed yourself down with some bug spray and that you make sure your tent's closed at night and things like that. And so like there's a lot of different precautions that you have to take in order to make sure that like you're being safe as well as that your team is safe with you.
Okay. So all in all, that does not sound like a great trip. I'm just gonna say that. Like, and I have a point to this. Like, I'm not just about to be like, yeah, this sucks. All in all, that is not like your Disney camping trip. I don't know who goes camping at Disney. People who wait in the line. That's who. If there's an 8-hour wait for your ride, don't go. Don't go. It's not worth it. That does not sound like a Disney camping trip. Are you at all deterred?
No, I think that excites me even more that like it's something like that where like you have so many different things that you have to look out for. I mean, like
she's got a flare in her eye. She is legitimately excited.
I would rather like spend my life sleeping in a tent than sleeping in a house and being complacent with where I am. I want to be in a place to where like I can pack up everything and go wherever the Lord's asked me to, and whether it is staying in Africa or going into Europe or going into war zones, like I want to be able to go there, and like learning those things like are key for survival. But I would say that those things are rather exciting and adrenaline rushing, and the fact that like you're in a place to where you can do what the Lord's asked you to do. And like I know that the Lord isn't calling me to live in the nice house that I am. He's calling me to live uncomfortable in such a manner to where like sleeping in a tent and hand washing my clothes and having to check water and things like that, like of course those things wouldn't bother me, because knowing that this is what the Lord's asked of me, and like there's things that like I'm having to surrender. Like the Lord, when he asks you to surrender things, he's not going to tell you to surrender something and not give you something in return. Like he's not a God that takes and doesn't give. Like he's going to give you something for that. And so like honoring him, like there's going to be different lives that I'm going to get to see changed, and I'm going to see that happen in different countries and different areas, and I get to see that stateside, but I'll see it in a whole different light in other countries where people haven't even heard the name of God before.
Listen, if you are listening and you're battling with a call here, my baby is just so excited about this interview as well. And you are battling with a decision, and you're like, and maybe that decision is a little uncomfortable. If this did not teeter the decision here to just go, to find the confirmation and go, then you weren't listening. Maybe you were listening to the baby.
The baby.
I don't know.
No, the baby's saying go.
The baby is saying go. So go. Listen to that.
Yeah.
But I am so amped, and I just want to say, like, this is so awesome. So, the fun part. You are currently raising money for this. Yeah. Is there any way that people who are listening, they're watching this, they're listening in, and they're like, man, this girl is sold out, she is ready to go, how can I help? How can they help?
Oh, man. I would say, like, for it, the big thing is I have about $5,000 I still have to raise for the trip. And so I'm pretty... I know. I'm in the same boat that I am.
No, I better be like in 3 weeks now. Like, God will be like, won't I do it?
But you can go to overlandmissions.com and you can go to their donate section. And when you go there, this baby is just so excited that you guys are going to help fund me for this trip. Like,
she's telling everybody that mommy and daddy are going to start donating.
yeah.
She's like saying exuberant amounts
Yeah.
of money. And now she's just walking by because she thinks she's the center of attention. Okay, so Overland Missions.
Yeah, so
we'll have that link up.
Yeah, so you go to overlandmissions.com and like you'll go to the donate area, and when you go there, like it'll have a memo area. It's where you write like who the money is going towards. And so in that memo area, in order to assure that it's going to my missions and not somebody else's,
it's important.
like you would put Lauryn Hill to make sure. I know, like the singer, but Lauryn.
Like Lauryn Hill, the singer.
Yeah. And with that, you can donate, or you can send a letter in the mail with like a check, and you got to make sure that there's a note inside the letter that says Lauryn Hill as well, so that they know who the check goes towards. Don't write my name on the check though.
Don't do it.
Write Overland Missions, because that way they can
Your
be
name
the
in
one.
the memo.
Yeah, so they can deposit, and then you can get a tax return, or what is a tax return? No, tax reduction.
Tax exemption.
Yes, that. And so you would send that to 11. You would send it to Overland Missions, 11 Riverside Drive, number 201, Cocoa, Florida 32922.
We'll also have that in the description there. Okay, so you need monies,
We need more.
but you're also trusting that God's going to do this.
Yeah,
So
he's done it twice now. Actually, 3 times now. So
3 times. Not worried about it. Not
we're
stressing.
looking for a 4-peat.
So
we know
this-
it's coming.
So if you're listening in, we'll have those ways that you can help out, that you can donate. Number one thing, continue to pray. Like, pray for my girl Lauren here. As she starts heading into this, as she continues to head into this, prayer is always important.
Yeah.
And if you can support monetarily, that would be fantastic as well. I believe that
Yeah.
God's going to do this 100%.
Oh yeah, I think more than that is like, I know that the Lord's also going to start building monthly supporters.
Yes.
And the fact that if that's something that you feel like you're called to do to help support monthly, like go ahead and you can pick one time or monthly on the options for it. And monthly will actually help me get out there quicker for being able to go back after I'm done with the advanced missionary training.
Fantastic. All right. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to say this right now, that as long as this podcast is... Oh, wait. That as long as the podcast is still here, which I think it will be. I have no doubts. Then when you get back from AMT, let's sit down and have another conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Last bit. This was a long episode. I hope everybody still stayed tuned in. This was a long one. But I want to say that this is... I won't say one of my favorite, or my favorite. I'll say one of my favorites, 100%.
No, your favorite will be when I get back from Africa.
Oh, man, listen, I'm ready. I'm not ready. But we do have a surprise for you.
Oh, I don't I don't know how I'm going to handle this.
It's pretty great.
I don't want to.
Connor didn't even know about this. He's like, he's clutching his face. I wish you guys could see this. He's literally like the Home Alone face. Are you ready?
No.
Now, I asked you, before I say this, I asked you really quick, did you throw the baby in? Like, the surprise was the baby? Like, there you go. That's your surprise. You get a baby. I asked you before. I sent you a simple text, and I said, short or long?
Yeah, I was very confused.
Very confusing. And that's all the detail I gave her. She was like, long. I mean, probably would have chose long too, right? I don't know. No context. Yeah, so this is what we got for you here. Is it upside down? This is what we got for you here.
Aww.
Okay, I'll show this.
That's great.
It is a custom made by my amazing wife. @ Crafty Nurse. Is the Papa Bear podcast shirt. Is long sleeved. That's why I asked you short or long. Would you have changed your mind and gone short?
No.
Fantastic.
And that will be $29.
Yeah, that would be $29.95. It's a gift, but we still have to make the bank. I'm just kidding. Maybe. She's not. She's like, yo, that's my food bill. I'm not kidding. That kid is She's chunky. There's enough. And so, Lauren, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I want you to know I just straight shoved who I had planned off the docket.
Was it Etienne?
It was Etienne. He still loves me. He forgave me.
Sorry, E-Money, a.k.a. E.T., a.k.a. Nobody calls you E-Money.
Nobody. His name in French means Steve. French Steve.
Oh. Uh-huh.
He'll be on the podcast actually here coming up soon. I'm so excited for February.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being in my dining room. This is great. I had so much fun with this interview. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Do you want to do the outro?
I don't know what the outro
Okay,
is.
so the outro. So you never
Papa
listened?
Bear.
Never watched any of my shows. It's fine.
Calling Papa Bear.
Wait, why did I just let you ask for money? No.
Dad.
Okay,
Dad.
so the outro goes like this.
Dad.
Not that.
Dad. Papa Bear.
No, but I like that. No, it goes, this has been the Papa Bear Podcast. The Papa Bear Podcast, if you're telling your friends about it. Did you get all of that?
Yeah.
If you mess it up, you're never coming back on.
Okay. This
go.
is the...
No. This isn't the... This has been...
This has been the Papa Bear Podcast, a.k.a. the Papa Bear Podcast.
If you're telling...
If you're telling your friends about it.
Which you really should. Please tell your friends about it. We love you so much.